Hi everyone, I'm Nivedita Mishra from the marketing team of Newgen. Before we begin this webinar, I would like to share a few numbers, which is, CMS audits have found that nearly 48% of provider directly entries, contain inaccuracy. The No Surprises Act has increased regulatory scrutiny on provider director accuracy. Gartner reports that 85% of AI initiatives fail due to poor data quality and governance gaps. So here's the question we are exploring today. If provider data directly impacts compliance, access, reimbursement, and member trust, why are health plans still managing it through fragmented workflows? So, today I'll be moderating this session and I'm joined by Dr. Madhu, who's Industry Principal at HCLTech, Lak Sundarajan, Industry Solution Architect at AWS, Divakar Pasricha, Director Product and Solution at Newgen. So let's start by understanding where the industry truly stands. Dr. Madhu, according to a CAQH Index report, health plans spend billions annually on manual administrative process, including credentialing and data validation. Additionally, CMS audit findings consistently highlight provider directory accuracy as a recurring compliance issue. Where across the provider lifecycle is AI creating measurable impact today, and where do health plans continue to struggle the most?
Yeah, thanks, Nivedita. See, as you rightly said, right, even though there is an entire report which has been generated and regulated from different analysts as well as from the CAQH and CMS, majorly focusing on the challenges and the utilization of the provider data as such in entire lifecycle management, right? Definitely, AI can help in clearly fastening the entire ROI process, majorly in this heavy rule-based provider management. There are a couple of stages in lifecycle management of provider where the AI can really help out as yield and better outcome. Majorly on different life cycles like stages like credentialing, onboarding, data management or data maintenance. There are a couple of other areas where you have manual dependent process. You can reduce that manual dependent process by infusing an artificial intelligence capabilities and also bring in the compliance check and governance check as a part of the AI capabilities, which can entirely enhance and optimize the process of provider lifecycle management, right? Stressing on couple of AI where the AI can clearly work in specific to provider lifecycle stages or the credentialing and re-credentialing stages, as you're rightly mentioning. This is because these are all the areas where it is majorly driven through a structured data. There are a couple of determinants and rule-based validations and clearly auditable requirement, which is as per the CMS and NCK guidelines, right? So this is where you have an easy infusion and then best entry point for all the health plans to start with as an AI or an AI journey with respect to the provider lifecycle management. This is because it can easily automate the process of your digital data extraction or document validation or document extraction, document summarization, and so on, and also optimizing the entire process of your provider lifecycle or a provider source verification automation. Okay, by doing this, what happens is you can easily reduce the entire lifecycle of your credentialing process and also reduce or minimize the error which can happen through your manual interventions. Okay. So that is where I say this is the best entry point for the health plans to start their AI journey in the provider lifecycle management. Coming on to the provider data management and the provider data directory accuracy, which you are stressing on. Again, here it is majorly driven through a data, AI-driven data harmonization or anomaly detections, which actually helps the plans to reduce their entire directory errors or its cross-matched updates, and also stress more on the lower or downstream application compliances exposure, whether it can be your CMS directory accuracy or else your No Surprise Act implications. In particularly, the importance is manual towards the manual audit for contributing the contents validation, and also instead of checking it on an majorly on quarterly based checking majorly on the compliance requirement or is doing a retrospective audit, it is helpful to infuse AI for your compliance audit check on a real-time basis, right? That is where you can yield ongoing accuracy on the data part. We also see an huge impact on onboarding and network update, majorly on automating the entire workflow combined with the document extraction or intelligent process, accelerating the provider onboarding process, and also still maintaining and aligning with the NCQH as well as the NCQA or else with the CMS requirement. This process, by infusing the AI into the product onboarding or else to the network management or else to the credentialing or re-credentialing process, will help in faster product onboarding into the network, and also plan. That also helps the plan retain their entire control and compliance at the same time. Okay, and if you see the major in this efforts where it takes on the manual interventions like your data ingestion process or document classification process or verification task can be utilized or run through the AI agents, where it can have a significant impact. Right, it's not only automate the task, it can also observe the major volume spikes. Whenever there is a volume spikes, it can also observe the entire capacity or the volume as a part of the AI utilization by utilizing the AI capability without proportionally increasing the staff. And also it can reduce wherever there is a manual touch points. So by doing that, what happens, one side it is optimizing the process, the other side is also minimizing your manual touch points. So there is an entire process stability and the process optimization can be brought in. Okay. The last part is majorly on compliance control, where it enables the entire health plan for a compliance control, majorly on the timelines checking, like the credential process timelines checking. It can be the document completeness, or else it can be for the compliance and policy adherence check, majorly to align with the NCQ and CMS requirements, which I was stressing before. These are all the good news, right? As we discussed, these are all the good news. But the problem is, at the same time, the health plan is still struggling in some of the areas. Like I was where a couple of areas like the downstream application or data sharing, or else the cross-system stages. When I say cross-system stages, majorly referring to the contract, from the contract to the claim translation. Wherever there is a contract happening, how that contract terms are translating into the claim adjudication rule engine, or else to the respective logic system logics, right? One of the biggest friction which we see in the market or the industry is majorly on how it is transitioning from contract lifecycle management into the claim adjudication process. When I say claim adjudication process, how this entire transaction of the contract terms are getting translated into your claim adjudication system logic. It can be with respect to the price interpretation, it can be with respect to the translating the intercontractual terms, it can be price configuration, it can be exception handling. These are all the places where the entire industry is still struggling. It doesn't mean that there is no AI tool for it. There are AI tools, but the complexity comes in as a part of your semantic systems. There are system level dependencies, more complex rules which is there. That is where, right, where even though if you are depending on more human interpretation on human resource driven process, the smaller interpretation mistakes, right, it can turn into a bigger financial leakage or else a provider aberration. It can also become a costlier post-pay correction kind of a process, right? These are all the challenges which the payers or the health plans still struggling to. There are a couple of other areas like ongoing monitoring or the compliance surveillances, majorly how the health plans are still in the process of retrospective review or point in time of reporting. This is where you have a limitation, right? The entire process limits you from the real-time visibility of your compliance drift, or else any compliance issue coming in, or else if there is any deviation from your compliance or the regulatory processes as a part of your entire provider management, or else from across the provider network. The other part is the entire performance governance. When it comes to performance governance, it is majorly from end-to-end performance, how the provider is performing. Even though we see that infusion of AI in and function-centric approach, majorly when I say function-centric, it is majorly from the credential has a separate function-centric AI infusion. The claim has another set of AI infusion majorly for the claim adjudication process. There is no end-to-end process which is actually catering to an entire complete governance. That is where the entire big space is still available to the market to address. It is not because, as I was telling you, right, it is not because of the capability or the tool existence. It is because of the complexity involved in the system level dependencies, the claim adjudication rule engine, the contractual term logic derivation, all those things which still needs a human intervention and interpretations. All right. So that is where, if you want to achieve an end-to-end governance as an enterprise level governance, you need to focus more on the unified lifecycle wide governance, where the health plans are struggling to. Okay, until unless you achieve this particular part of end-to-end governance as an entire lifecycle wide governance to achieve the performance as well as the contractual lifecycle stages governance, end-to-end governance, you will not be able to fulfill the needs of an enterprise level governance. So that is where I would like to conclude stating, right, the next big leap will come from an agent orchestrated lifecycle wide governance, where AI is not only automating the task, but it is also anticipating the compliance risk, enforcing the policy continuously, governance, provider performance, and also brings as a complete single system, not just a siloed system, but as a complete system.
Thank you, Dr. Madhu. What you highlighted around the life cycle view and shift towards the predictable compliance-led operation is particularly relevant. Let me bring LAC into the conversation to build on the governance aspect of this. So Gartner predicts that by 2026, organizations that prioritize data governance will outperform peers in AI success metrics by 30%. At the same time, McKinsey reports that 70% of the digital transformation failed due to lack of scalable operating models. So my question is, for health plans looking to modernize provider data operations, what foundational levers must be in place to scale AI responsibly and securely?
Thanks, Mereditha. A great question. So let me keep this practical. So there are 5 foundational levers and they build on top of each other. Let me walk through what those 5 levers are. The first one is basically data backbone. And if you look at health plans, the provider data is scattered across multiple systems: credentialing, contracting, claims, directories. It's all over the place. And what you need to start with is a unified cloud native data layer, and basically a single source that ingests from all upstream systems, normalizes, and serves the downstream consumers. This basically means you have a data store which is managed, which scales infinitely, and it has sub-millisecond latency for reads and writes. And why it matters for AI is because if the models are trained on fragmented data, they're going to produce contradictory results. So the data layer is not the infrastructure, but it's basically the prerequisite for every AI that use case that kind of follows it. The second one is basically a unified canonical model. And if you look at it, every system speaks a different language, and they have proprietary schemas, flat files. So what I'm talking about here is adopt FHIR as a canonical model, because if you look at CMS, there's a regulatory requirement, CMS 0057F, which talks about provider directory API, payer access API, payer-to-payer API, and prior auth API. So these are kind of imposed by CMS. So it's good to kind of have FHIR as a canonical data model, which this way all the systems translate into a single language, and you also have the interoperability in place. The third one I want to talk about is basically the golden record. And the golden record, if you look at it, we already spoke about it. You have multiple systems and data is all over the place. You kind of unify them, but even after you unify them, you're going to end up with multiple records for the same provider. And in fact, CMS says 48% of the listings are inaccurate. So what we need is basically a golden record. So what's a golden record? It's basically a single, reconciled, validated provider profile. And this is where you need to basically have that data store, which kind of scales infinitely and manages the data at scale, and can also maintain that golden record. Why it's important is because, think about it, you have your provider access servers updated. You want to have all the internal systems get updated at the same time. So when somebody goes to the app, they should be able to see that the timings are up to date. So if you want to have that, your data foundation and the golden record are critical in this behavior. So let's say you implemented that, then the next one that comes to mind is observability. And here, what happens here is you build the pipeline, but then you need to have real-time dashboards that monitor data quality for basically completeness and also the compliance side of things. So you have to track metrics like what percentage of records were updated in the last 90 days, what percentage of them have verified contact names and addresses, whether they pass through the FHIR validation schema, and so on. what that's going to do is basically, if the data quality score drops, then you have to fix it immediately, and you don't have to wait for an audit or a red flag before you kind of start fixing them. So how do you put it all together? You need to basically start small, and then you have to start incrementally building on it. So at AWS, I think we have this whole 3-layer stack that we are telling customers. So you have your data foundation layer at the bottom, and on top of it, you have your agents layer, which is basically where you can communicate with the data layer through MCP or through APIs. And you basically have this orchestration of agents sitting on top of the data layer. And then on top of it, you build your experience layer, which is going to weave all these things together and provide that single pane of glass experience to the end user. So that's how we kind of put all these things together. And you need to have like a AI transformation roadmap where you kind of start small and then you build incrementally on top of it. And that way the foundation kind of builds by itself. So to summarize what we discussed, you need to have your unified data layer and have FHIR as your canonical model, golden record as a single source of truth, observability so that you can catch issues before CMS does it, and then you start with one workflow that provides value to the customer, and that's basically your foundation. And without that, you're basically guessing and you're not implementing stuff. So that's what I would recommend to get started with this.
Thank you, Lak. The emphasis on foundational elements like data models and governance framework clearly sets the stage for a scalable AI adoption. Building on that, I would like to bring Divakar into the talk about how this translates into execution. So Divakar, the Council for Affordable Quality Healthcare estimates that automating administrative workflows could save the healthcare industry over $20 billion annually. Additionally, Experian Health reports that poor data quality cost healthcare organizations millions in avoidable operational inefficiencies. So from a product and implementation perspective, how can low-code platform combined with AI reduce administrative burden while strengthening compliance and data accuracy?
Thank you, Nivedita, and thank you all for joining today. Let me start with a question, right? How many of you have had a member call your plan to find out if their doctor is still in network and the answer your portal gave them was wrong? That is the provider data problem that we are talking today, and it cost health plan in billions annually in rework, compliance, penalties, and member churn. Here's what I have observed working with health plans across the country. The problem is never lack of system, it's lack of orchestration, which was also highlighted by Dr. Madhu and Lax while they were talking about it. So we have seen fragmented intake channels, disconnected validation workflows, redundant manual reviews, and delayed publishing cycles. The result is reactive cleanup instead of continuous accuracy. That shift from reactive to continuous is exactly what Newgen's AI-first platform is built to deliver. And that's what I'll walk you through today, how Newgen can come in and help at different sections of the provider lifecycle management. Let me first start with the foundation layer, which is low code. In most of the conversations, low code gets positioned as faster app development. But in provider lifecycle management, it plays a very different role. It becomes your process control tower. What does that mean practically? With Newgen's low-code backbone, health plans can configure a unified intake layer, capture provider data from rosters, portals, delegated entities, and even unstructured email into a single governed workflow. From there, you get configurable credentialing and contracting workflows, rule-based routing that eliminates manual triage, built-in SLA tracking, and automated escalations. Instead of stitching together point solutions that each hold a fragment of the truth, you create one orchestration layer across the entire provider lifecycle. That gives your CIO agility, your operations team visibility, and your compliance team auditability. Now let me talk about where it gets genuinely transformative, the AI. AI in provider lifecycle management should not be experimental. It must be embedded into your operations checkpoints, and that is how exactly Newgen has built it. Most of the organizations are already using AI for document ingestion, NPA validations, again CMS datasets, duplicate detections, right, and anomaly flagging before publishing. That's table stakes today. The real shift comes in where Newgen is differentiated is in agentic AI. Agentic AI doesn't just identify the issue, it takes actions with defined governance boundaries. Let me talk about 4 concrete agents that Newgen deploys in this particular space. The first one is an autonomous intake agent. Today, your intake team manually reviews every submission, classifying it, chasing down the missing data, and then routing it. With Newgen's intake agent, the system classifies the submission type, identifies missing fields, validate against your rules, send follow-up requests automatically, and escalates only the true exceptions to a human. Intake moves from manual processing to exception-driven operations. Your team focuses on 5 to 10% that actually needs them. The second agent that we have is a directory surveillance agent. This agent runs continuously in the background, monitoring for discrepancies across systems, flagging specialty mismatches, address conflicts, network consistencies, and others. And when it finds it, it doesn't just alert, it triggers a corrective workflow. Instead of finding errors during CMS audit, you prevent them in real time with this particular agent. The third is recredentialing agent. Credentialing expirations are one of the most predictable compliance failures in healthcare, and yet still plans catch off guard for this particular compliance. Newgen's recredentialing agent tracks every expiration, monitors state licenses databases, sends proactive provider outreach, follow up autonomously, and escalates only when the provider is unresponsive. So what we are doing is we are bringing compliance as a continuous process rather than a periodic audit. The last agent that we have in this particular space is the contract intelligence agent. In contracting, Newgen's agent can summarize agreement, compare them against your standard clause library, surface risk deviations, suggest red lines, and trigger your legal workflow, all before a human has even touched the document. So overall, this compresses your turnaround time while improving governance simultaneously. Now this is critical. None of this works without a governance layer, right? As Blacks talked about, that governance is very important. Newgen's agentic framework operates within your business rules with full audit trails, role-based guardrails, and human override checkpoints at every stage. Without governance, autonomy can create risk. With governance, autonomy creates scale. So instead of thinking about AI as a tool you implement, think of it as a digital workforce layer embedded inside your provider lifecycle. Traditional AI identifies the pattern, agentic AI executes next best action. That is the shift from automation to intelligent operational autonomy. Now let me also talk about the third part, which was the API backbone and the golden record. Here's one of the most common root causes I see behind provider data failures: inconsistency across systems. Your claim platform holds one version of provider address, your CRM holds another, and your care management system would hold a third, each one with a different truth. Newgen's API first architecture solves this with what we call the canonical provider data model, a golden record that serves as a single source of truth across your enterprise. This isn't a static database, it is continuously validated, event-driven model, real-time synchronization, and bidirectional integration across every downstream system. It is FHIR compatible so that whenever provider updates their address, every system that reflects that change, not in days, not in a batch run, but immediately using those APIs. Here's the important point. Without this backbone, your AI agents work on dirty data. They'll route workflows based on stale information, they'll flag false positive, and they'll miss real issues. The golden record is what makes everything reliable. Let me share one of the real examples where we are working with one of the blues, which was dealing with 3 compounding challenges: fragmented intake across multiple delegated entities, a manual reconciliation process that was creating 2 to 3 week lag in directory updates, and a audit finding tied to directory inaccuracies. We are implementing the Newgen AI-based intake processing, golden record creation across their system of records, and workflow orchestration with the built-in agents, SLA enforcement, and pre-published validations with automated attestation. So, this is with a vision to reduce onboarding cycle time significantly, manual reconciliation efforts reduced by over 60%. So if I talk about this particular lesson, this isn't just automation at work. It is orchestration plus AI plus governed agents all working together is what drives the outcome that sticks, right? And you're able to scale with it.
Thank you, Divakar. That brings a useful implementation lens, especially the role of low code in operationalizing AI while maintaining control and compliance. Now let's take a step back and look at the broader direction this is heading in. So my question to each one of you, will provider data management remain a back office operational function, or will it become a strategic differentiator for payer competitiveness? Madhu, Dr. Madhu, would you like to start?
As rightly said, Nivedita, it will not be a back office function anymore. The reason is, as you more serve the provider with accuracy, not only with respect to the provider data management, but as an entire end-to-end administration, right? It gives a competitive edge in the industry for you to be a better performer in the industry, right? So that is where we need to focus majorly on automating and also in bringing in the AI capabilities in majorly automating the process which can be driven through an agent flow, and also reduce because as we know, right, this entire process is hugely dependent on manual interventions, interpretations and dependencies. So if you can reduce that and bring in efficiency with an automation, AI infusion by a process optimization, and yield a better outcome, right? And also drastically reducing the entire cost involved in it, it can help you out as a part of the entire end-to-end administration as an end plan.
Thank you, Dr. Madhu. Lax, do you want to pitch in?
Yeah, sure. So I would like to just go back to what I said before, right? So to make it a differentiator, I think before you look into AI, you should focus on a data foundation, because I think the current landscape is pretty simple, right? You are looking at so much conflicting information across multiple systems. So if you want to make it a differentiator, you want to make sure that you get your basics right, because in machine learning there's a classical saying like garbage in, garbage out, which means if you don't have the right data, you cannot basically give the most accurate output that's needed, which is going to help that patient at that point of time. So I think you should start working on this to become a real differentiator, and that's where you have to basically also look at your framework that you're using, right? You should look at a managed service, which is basically scaling infinitely, gives you the compliance, and also gives you a lower cost of ownership, and build on top of it, and incrementally start building your AI capabilities so that you basically come up with a differentiating product. So we have something called Health AI Stack here at AWS, which is where we're building solutions on top of core services, which effectively kind of serve out these particular requirements. So I would say kind of start from there and eventually build out the capabilities and get yourself a differentiated product.
Thanks, Lax. Over to you, Divakar.
So, Nivedita, I'll definitely say it's not a back office function anymore, right? I'll say that if you're a health plan and thinking about where to start, here's my honest advice. I'll say that start with your data backbone and governance model and incorporate AI agents around it. Define your canonical provider model, establish ownership of the golden record, map your integration strategy, and embed AI and agentic agents around it. Health plan that would treat provider data as a strategic asset and not a back office function will outperform their peers in compliance readiness, network competitiveness, and member trust.
Thank you,
Provider-
Diwakar.
Yeah.
Please continue.
So I was just concluding that provider data is becoming the differentiator, and Newgen is
Yeah.
built to help you lead with that shift.
So thank you, Diwakar. Thank you, Diwakar. So now I would like to close with one final question to all of you. If you had to give one advice to a health plan executive starting their provider lifecycle modernization journey today, what should they prioritize first and why? Lax, do you want to go first?
Yes, sure. If you look at one thing I have to prioritize, I would say I would take a look at what I'm doing today in terms of the architectural stack, because we spoke so much about the issues that are currently plaguing the provider ecosystem, and we're also talking about how AI agents are kind of helping you leap forward. So I would say start with the foundation, build that layer architecture, and there are multiple methodologies available now to kind of start small and get up and running. Like, you don't really need to spend 18 to 24 months to get up and running. You can start using these AI tools from the engineering side as well. Pick a specific area, start building it out, put it out there, and then eventually build your whole framework around it. That's what I would do.
Dr. Madhu, what's your perspective?
I would conclude with three different pointer, Nivedita. I would reiterate what Lax was telling, right? First, focus majorly on data foundation, because that is the important layer where you want to utilize or consume the entire data, right? Standardize your data functions majorly. It can be through the FHIR standards or anything which has been mandated as a part of the CMS mandate, because those are all mandatory ones. That is one part. The second part is you start with the small. Whenever you are infusing or bringing in starting the journey of AI journey, right? Start with an easy area or easy use cases like your credentialing, where you have more structured data, like your Diwakar was telling, right? Majorly an intake process where you can easily differentiate between the missing data or else the exceptional handling or else the provider outreach and everything. Start with the small and utilize your resources, right? Wherever you have a talent or skills, use them more from the interpretation rather than the skill or task force driven approach, right? More from utilizing the task for your crucial contractual agreement translations to your logic building, or else interpreting your entire contractual agreements with respect to your logic building for your adjudication process, or else your downstream application of management process, care driven approach, rather than your daily routine activities which can be handled through your AI agents or else an automation process. That will be an easy step forward for the health plan, where they can focus majorly on these three items. One is the data foundation, bringing in an easy entry of your agentic or the AI infusion. Third is utilizing talent skill, majorly focusing on where it is to be used, like interpretations or exception handling, rather than on a daily task.
Thanks, Dr. Madhu. Diwakar, over to you.
So I agree with both Dr. Madhu and Lax, what they said, right? Start small, right? Build the data model and then build agents around it for complete automation so that you are consistent, right? In my experience, CMS audits don't fail because health plans aren't trying. They fail because validation happens too late in the process. So you have to start with your process and the orchestration journey. With Newgen's model, right, validation is embedded before publishing. All the rules are built in, automated attestations, full audit trails, all built into a complete provider lifecycle workflow and not bolted afterwards in a disjointed fashion. So with that, compliance shift from quarterly fire drills to something that's just running and embedded in the background all the time. So that's the complete different operating posture that health plan should get into.
Thank you, Diwakar. So, thank you everyone. Thank you, Dr. Madhu, Lax, and Diwakar for those valuable insights. If there's one takeaway from today's discussion, It's this provider data chaos is solvable, but it requires structured, measurable, and governed adoption of AI. With that, I would like to close the session. On behalf of Newgen and our panelists, thank you to everyone who joined us today.